All right, episode 5 of the Prioritizer Parish web series is here. Took me a little while. Apologize for that. Focus, as the slide says, is on adaptation and resilience for critical infrastructures. This is not about the mitigation, the reduction of emissions into the atmosphere, which heat it and heat the oceans and cause global weirding. That's really important. We have to do that massively, but we can't forget, and so far we aren't paying enough attention to the adaptation and resilience necessities that we have to attend to if we want to keep civilization going. The title of this episode is Feeding Your Head. For old timers or classic rock people, that line comes from a Jefferson Airplane song penned by Grace Slick, and it's about Alice and the White Rabbit is the name of the song. Quest for knowledge driven by curiosity. That was me trying to figure out how I'm going to become useful by being semi-competent on climate resilience topics, starting without too much more than an environmental orientation as a cybersecurity guy. So a couple of years ago I started, and today I'm going to list a couple of documents, different types of resources that if you want to go to school and you're starting from scratch, or you know some fair amount of things, but there might be a couple resources that could give you an extra boost. I'm going to list those in the course of this 10-minute presentation. Okay? So as have established a pattern in the past, let me say that I'm not going to say anything. Here's a disclaimer. Please read it. I think you get the general idea of a disclaimer. And also, I'd like to say that I ended last week, or the session 4 a couple weeks ago, was a promo of sorts for a panel that a colleague of mine from Idaho and a friend and colleague from Argonne National Lab outside Chicago, we put together and did down in DC in National Harbor, and it went really well. The general idea, in case you didn't see that, was to layer downscaled climate model data over a highly detailed infrastructure map of the United States. We zoomed in on a section on coastal Georgia and showed what those climate projections in the future meant for the infrastructure assets in that area. We didn't really get to the part where we were talking, which we would talk about, what were the solutions, what were the hardening options or the adaptation techniques that were available. We didn't have time for that, but that's what we're trying to build. That's a decision maker tool we're trying to build. And that first public encounter of it seemed to go really well based on feedback we got during that presentation. So, okay, now I'm going to take you to the stuff that I said I was going to take you to. I don't always prepare everything in advance perfectly, and I'm sorry you have to endure that sometimes. So let's start. As you can see, there's multicolored slides in keeping with the Alice in Wonderland theme. I'm going to go to a bigger screen. At least I think I'm going to. There we go. Someday I'll learn how to drive PowerPoints. Anyway, let's start with documents. Only one of these is one that I used in my initial research a few years ago. The rest are more contemporaneous, but I want you to not have to necessarily go all the way back. These are things you need to know about or would help you to know about right now. And so I've numbered them just so I can point to them this way. So number 1 is something I might have mentioned before. It's a piece of legislation that's in motion on the Hill. It goes by the name National Climate Adaptation and Resilience Strategy Act of 2022, sponsored, primarily penned by Senator Chris Coons of Delaware, with Lisa Murkowski from Alaska on board and some others. And Cameron Adams, I believe, is the primary author. Cameron and I had a chance to talk after he had left the Coons office, and he is now at the Nature Conservancy. Anyway, that's an important document. It could actually be the beginning of giving us a national strategy, which I'll comment on before this presentation is over. Number 2, I've read a lot about climate migration from an author or journalist named Abram Lustgarten in ProPublica in the New York Times. Well, the White House captured a lot of his thinking and some others and packaged it nicely in this report on the impact of climate migration. And by the way, all these documents are easily Googleable. Otherwise, I would have given you the links to them. So they'll be easy for you to find. That's an important thing to understand what's already in motion for migration and what's projected to be coming. Numbers 3 and 4 are documents that the Department of Energy, the one that I'm most closely associated with, generated coming out of Executive Order 14008. And every department and every agency in the federal government is tasked with developing climate resilience and adaptation plan, and then also assessing their own vulnerabilities, layering in climate data, and then coming up with proposed solutions for how to keep their most important assets operating reliably for the foreseeable future. So those are very interesting, and I'm talking with people at my own lab and elsewhere about what those initial findings are. The last one, like I said, number 5, is one that I did use and happened upon in the early days. It goes all the way back to 2014, but because it focuses on energy infrastructure, it was really helpful for me, even as it pointed out, like I always do, about the interdependencies, and that if you only do your sector, only take care of one sector's infrastructure, and don't take care of or make sure that the other ones that you're depending on are also doing climate resilience thinking, planning, adapting, then you're not doing the whole job, and you're going to be disappointed when things go south. Books. I've read all of these, and only the first one was one that I happened upon in my early days before the pandemic. Evaluating climate change impacts. It has some sector-specific guidance, including one that I gravitated to on energy and the grid, but it covers other sectors as well. It's really well done, and I believe with a little bit of effort, you can get a free copy. If not, it's not that expensive, and it's really worth reading if you're an infrastructure person, because that's what it's about. The second one, Fire and Flood, is more recent. It gives you the really sweeping history of all of our IPC panels and COP conferences, the role of the insurance industry and governments across the globe. It's really a great background education for understanding what's going on and where it came from. Ministry of the Future is speculative fiction, meaning it's like science fiction. It's telling the story of a near future world that's profoundly changed and changing because of what's been happening on the climate front, and how we've attempted to alter our economies and our global governance structures to accommodate these tremendous changes. And number 4 is a book published just before the pandemic by Alice Hill. I'll be mentioning her in a second. Called Building a Resilient Tomorrow. She also immediately cranked out another one that sort of tied climate action with pandemic response. It was really interesting how quickly and how well she was able to do that. Anyway, this book I would recommend for at least 2 of the chapters. One is called Rethinking How We Build, and Resilience, reconceiving national security for a climate perspective. I botched that, but that's basically what it's about, and well worth your time. Okay, my next category is, I think it's the last major category, is podcasts. And I'm not going to say too much about these, except for there's a bunch of climate podcasts. One of them comes right out and says that it's about adaptation, the first one. But all of these are run by brilliant people. The energy transition is obviously broader than climate, but the transition is largely happening because of climate, in addition to economic factors for renewables. Chris is brilliant, a former Rocky Mountain Institute person I've been in contact with for a long time, and he gets great guests. Ditto for the Columbia University Energy Exchange and Climate One, both well worth your time. And if you spend any time on treadmills or exercise bikes or on long drives or in planes or trains, it's a great way to feed your head with stuff that can be helpful to you later on. And then the purpose of this slide is just saying, find folks that you gravitate towards, find folks that seem compelling and tell you things that you would need to know. I've listed 3 of them here and some of their past affiliations. I won't unpack those acronyms for you, but you can. And if you read those 3 points from Alice Hill, author of that previous book, she says, you know what, I'm out of time. I'm not going to be able to read them all. I think I'll do the last one. Senior leaders in government and industry rarely have any experience or expertise on topics required to make good decisions on climate. climate resilience in particular. And that's so much from my past in cybersecurity. It's unbelievable. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say. I always pledge to stop in 10. We're ticking down. Hope you stay safe out there, and I'll be back with episode 6 soon. Bye.